Okay, just before we get started, I just want to check with Anna. Do you see a screen sharing option if you are going to share your screen? So
I do.
okay, good. Okay.
Oh, but it says oh no, yep, I do. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Okay, we are 4 minutes up, so we'll get started. Hello, everyone, as we decided to keep the greeting neutral. I think we are on, this is a Sector 3 event, so largely we are all in our daytime, but for Marilee and Alice, they are joining in from US, so it's nighttime for them. So hello and welcome to everyone to this year's International Women's Day event. Being hosted by INCOSE and the Empowering Women Leaders in Systems Engineering Working Group, EWLSE, as we call it. This year's theme is quite interesting and in tune to the times of digital transformation that we are seeing not only everywhere around us, but also within the systems engineering community. There is a lot that, we are talking around digital transformation in any aspect of the life cycle of the system as we participate. So that's why I'm really excited about the theme this year. Also, the hashtag that is being promoted this year is Embrace Equity, comes with a lot of positivity, I would say, because it's about embracing a sentiment, embracing the situation, and embracing ourselves also, actually. So with that note, welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining. We have an exciting lineup for today. We have Marilee Wheaton, President of INCOSE, Alice Squires. She's the founder of EWLSE, the Empowering Women Leaders in Systems Engineering Working Group, and an active advocate. We have Serge, who is the Sector Director for Asia Oceania, the sector we are situated in. We will have Maria join in if she's not able to make it. I do have a recorded message from her, which we will play. She's the Associate Director of DEI within INCOSE. And then we're very excited to host Anna Eilers, who is the keynote speaker for our session today. And we will get on with the talks. Before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Stuti Gupta. I'm based in Pune in India, and I'm the sector lead for EWLSE for Asia Oceania. And other than that, I'm also the Assistant Director of Volunteerism at INCOSE. So welcome everyone again, and I hand it over to Marilee. And Alice, if you can share the screen.
Great, welcome everyone. I'm so glad we're doing this, and it's so cool that it's in 3 different time zones that work out for everybody, so we can do one across all of our sectors. I think one of the things that I most admire about INCOSE, and I'm really proud of, is how global that we all are, and that we truly represent the global community of systems engineering. I think embracing equity is a good theme, and also about the digital aspects of it, because it is true. I mean, being digital and the digital transformation is what we really have been focusing on quite recently, both with our MBSE initiative as well as with our Digital Engineering Information Exchange, and then even just trying to, across INCOSE and the operations, to try to be more digital and to be more efficient and effective. So it's a really interesting theme this year. And, I think the theme in the International Women's Day really made you kind of reflect on, how are we doing toward equity? And I'm really very proud of INCOSE, because I do think that as a professional society, we do represent quite a bit of what I would say is gender equality in our society. I belong to quite a few professional societies throughout the years. And a lot of the ones that are in the technical societies, when I'm in meetings and stuff, I think there's a lot less representation of gender diversity than actually in INCOSE. And if you look across the folks that are leaders, whether it's our board of directors, it's our the working groups, the associate, the assistant directors, there are a lot of women in leadership positions. So I'm actually very proud whenever I'm representing INCOSE, because I think from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, I think we're doing well. Certainly a day like today also makes us think that there's always room for improvement and there's always work to do. So I think it reinforces that. But I certainly know for myself, being part of INCOSE, starting from when I joined in 2002, I always felt very well accepted. I felt like I could bring my authentic self, that people would take me both for my strengths and my weaknesses, and then I could be part of the systems engineering community, all contributing together toward making through the systems approach a better world and better solutions for everybody. So I've always really felt that way, and I hope that others that are in INCOSE also do feel that way. And we certainly are striving to ensure that everyone feels like they can be accepted, bring their authentic selves, and play a leadership role. So again, I'm very proud of it. Certainly other work we can do. The final thing I just wanted to talk about, because it's definitely from a global perspective, is our recent book that came out in the fall, Emerging Trends in Systems Engineering Leadership. And the co-editors are Alice Squires, myself, and Heather Felly. And one of the reasons we're so proud of this book is that it is all women authors. This Women in Engineering series from Springer, you pick a different domain of either science or engineering, so it's engineering and science, and then all the authors are women, though we really acknowledge quite a number of advocates and allies that also supported us in the book in terms of the reviews and stuff like that. But we have 26 authors across all of these chapters, most of whom are INCOSE members. And so we're just really proud of this group. And so there you have me at the recent IS or at IW showing the book and the fact that it's out. And so we just want to bring this to everyone's attention. I think it's going to be a really great reference. If we go to the second slide, Alice, I just want to highlight the table of contents, and you'll see it's a different kind of book because it really does talk about a lot of the skills you need for technical leadership that are becoming so much more important. And I think, quite honestly, women have very strong skill sets toward a lot of these type of attributes. And so you see the various areas, what the essential skills are. We certainly focus chapters on diversity, equity, and inclusion, broadening systems engineering leadership, and then we do talk about emerging technological change, and we talk about the digital transformation. So I think it fits in really well with our themes for International Women's Day today. As I said, we're very, very proud of all of these authors and the fact that the book is out. It definitely was a labor of love for the last 2 years, and it was sponsored by the Empowering Women Leaders in Systems Engineering, being founded by Alice Squires. So I would like to, I think Alice is up next, right, on the agenda. So I'd like to turn it over to Alice for further information on EWLSE. Over to you, Alice.
Okay, thank you so much, Marilee. I really appreciate it. And not only am I going to talk to you about EWLSE, but I'm also going to talk to you about embracing equity in leadership. And so first I want to thank Stuti Gupta for putting together these International Women's Day seminars that we're having at every sector. And of course, as she mentioned, she's the leader in Asia Oceania. And then we have Annabelle Fraga, who leads the Middle
East and Africa.
Middle East, Africa. And then we have sort of an open spot for the Americas, but we've got Eric Specking who's been filling in there. So a lot of thanks to him as well. And so the vision of EWLSE I wanted to share with everybody is a world where women and men are equally represented as leaders in systems engineering. So roughly 50-50 men and women in leadership and systems engineering, and really across the board. And that in turn, we support INCOSE's vision, which is a better world through a systems approach. And we have some future events coming up that I just want to mention here. We've got systems engineering conferences in all 3 sectors. We've got one in the EMEA sector in April that Annabelle is leading. We have one in the Asia Oceania sector in October that Studi is leading as events, EWLSE events at these conferences. They're not, well, actually, Annabelle is also leading that conference, but we're talking about empowering women leaders, which we pronounce as EWLSE events that are happening at these conferences. And then we have some activities that are going to be going on at the INCOSE International Symposium in Hawaii, USA in the summer. And then we're also going to have some activities at the Society of Women Engineers annual conference that is taking place in October in Los Angeles, California. So, you know, stay tuned for those. We've also, in addition to the emerging trends, we have other publications that we've supported or taken part in Women in Engineering IEEE, Emerging Frontiers, but more specifically for INCOSE, we have an INCOSE Insight on Diversity in Systems Engineering that was published in the fall of 2019 and won a Best Editor's Theme Award. So there's some focus in INCOSE on diversity. And then we have the more recent Letters to My Younger Self publication, which is targeted toward young men and women to help them learn about systems engineering, and it's available free to anybody to use or distribute. It's targeted primarily at the high school level or middle school level, and it's easily found on the INCOSE website by going to incose.org/LTMYS, the initials of the title, Letters to My Younger Self. So feel free to take a look at that. And, you know I learned a lot working on these letters from other systems engineers. We have several letter writers here, including Studi and Sergey as well wrote a letter, and myself, and hopefully I didn't forget anybody that wrote one. So here's where I want to talk just a little bit about equity and leadership. So embracing equity, what happens when we undervalue women by just a little bit? Just a little bit, because it might happen. It might be happening in our workplaces. We might be undervaluing women at least just a little bit. And what happens? Some examples of this might be when women are penalized for behavior that men may be applauded for, or women's potential is under-recognized versus a man's potential, or maybe credit for women's work is being siphoned off by others. And all of these have been shown in research to occur. And so I'm going to show you a model of what happens where we start off all things equal, and then what happens when we undervalue just by 3%. And this model was created by the work of Jessica Nordell, Kenny Joseph, and Yu-Ha Du in a computer simulation. And this is how you can access it. It's part of a New York Times article. This is how everyday sexism could stop you from getting that promotion. So you can reference that. So here is the simulation after year 1. We've got a fictitious company, Norm Corp, that has 8 levels within the company. And they start off, down here are the graphs of where they start off. At all 8 levels, they start off 50% men, 50% women at those levels. And so they start to run the simulation where they're just undervaluing women by 3%. And women are shown in this color here. Here's the legend right here. And the men are shown in this color here. Can you see my cursor? Okay, great. And so you see, we're still, sort of 50-50 across the board here after 1 year of simulation. But and we can't really tell much at the lower levels, but we can see at this very highest level, we can see there appear to be more men sort of coming into the level 8 and not as many women coming in there, already after 1 year. Then we fast forward 5 years later, and we start to see at the lower levels, we're still seeing sort of even distribution, level 1, level 2, level 3, but we're not seeing it so much when we start getting to 4 or 5, and definitely, 6, 7, 8, we're starting to see some discrepancies. And then one more time, when we go fast forward to 10 years, now we see the effect of just a very subtle bias, just small microaggressions, and what that does to the leadership pipeline. And so since we're embracing equity tonight, and I wanted to talk about equity and leadership, what I'm talking about is equity is about equal outcomes. So we started out all things equal, but we didn't end up all things equal. So we don't, in this particular scenario, when you just have very subtle undervaluing of one gender or one category of people, no matter what it is, you're going to see that you cannot achieve equity. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I think eye-opening and some food for thought for us as we, get into the action, what we have, action cards that we have planned towards the end of this session. I think this will be helpful to think how we can, what kind of accountability and what kind of initiatives that we can take in our own sphere of influence. So thank you so much. And I know Marilee is going to drop off in some time, and I just wanted to say thank you for being here, live in this session. Nothing beats live presence. And I truly echo how global the organization is, and how much we learn from the nature, that global nature that the organization has. And I'm experiencing that firsthand in the TLI cohort, and how much there is to learn from each other, even though we call ourselves leaders, but there is so much that we learn every day, as we are part of these different groups within INCOSE. With that, I'll hand it over to Serge and invite him to say a few words. Serge,
Hello.
I know you are a great ally of women in engineering, and I know you don't feel different from this group on Women's Day. So we welcome you wholeheartedly.
All right, thank you very much. It's good to be here. So I'm going to echo some of what has been said before, because it was very interesting, and I will probably try to bring another perspective, the Asia Oceania perspective, and my point of view, but I'll open it as well. Now my challenge today was to talk about how INCOSE is making effort towards making a more equitable environment. So I'm going to just go beyond just women. I will go into any group, underserved communities and places. That also include women, by the way. We have just said, thanks to Marilee, that the focus of INCOSE, our vision, is to a better world through a systems approach. And I'm going to try to explicit that a little bit as well. At the board, in the past few years, we have created a lot of things. We have a new policy in place about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a deputy director position, so a role that is relatively new as well. And that role is actually part of a bigger organization, which is an advisory committee. So there's a committee reporting to the BOD because INCOSE considers that it is imperative within INCOSE to really push for this equity, diversity, and inclusion. And for all the reasons that we talked about, to allow people to comfortably be their authentic self in the organization, to recognize recognize themselves in other members, have an equal voice and opportunity in all their interactions within the organization. So those are things that are written inside our policy. This policy dictates that we should have a DEI plan, and because we are in engineering, we need and we require to monitor and measure the activities that we do so that we know that we are progressing and we can adjust the plan. This is good, sound, obvious system engineering, and yet you will see that not everybody is practicing this. So we are trying to eat our own dog food. We are trying to practice what we preach. I just mentioned about reaching out to underserved community and places, and this is dear to my heart. I want to bring some example about that. There's an excellent work of the INCOSE Foundation at the moment, where we are running a pilot with 2 African universities, Nairobi in Kenya and Lagos in Liberia. We have just invited one university professor from Nairobi into Torrance for the IWLSE, the international workshop in 2023 in January. And there are a lot of discussion ongoing to boost system engineering engagement within those universities in Africa. But see, it's a pilot and we aim to learn from it and to do more of these kind of things. The second example is worldwide. We talked about digital transformation in system, but that's what we are pushing thanks to the Vision 2035 and FUSE in particular. But within our organization, we are also making an effort to ourselves transform, to be more digital, the theme of this journey, this day. We are trying to reach out to people who don't have the possibility to come to our events. So we have pushing the hybrid format to all our events. We are recording content to serve our sectors and allowing after event viewing for the people who didn't manage to attend. We are gradually adding subtitles in the uploaded video recordings, both in YouTube and in places that YouTube cannot reach. I'm naming China. We are reaching out to remote communities in our local chapters, so in a local fashion to serve people better. And each of the chapter is doing more of reaching out in using digital. In Asia, we are also creating more and more live events, which are opened worldwide to everybody. The trick being we are trying to make use of time zones which are palatable to the people from New Zealand to India. We have 7 hours difference, so time zone is really something that we are interested in making use of rather than being constrained by it. The evidence of impact, we have grown overall by a lot. If you see our footprint in INCOSE has increased a lot, you look at our numbers, they are growing. But in Asia Oceania in particular, I would just want to quickly just mention that we represent 60% of the world population. 8 years ago, we were a small number. We were representing only 5% of INCOSE. Thanks to all our efforts, we have almost tripled our individual membership in 8 years. And as of 2022-23, we represent 12% of the whole INCOSE. So that's reaching out to corners where we were not represented before. My ending message is, of course, we can do much more, and we will be constantly looking out at improving. So we measure in order to be able to improve and to keep working at our vision and extend our outreach towards underserved groups, both near us and further away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serge. Really inspiring and to hear about all the impact that different even small gestures are creating. So I think that's really great to know this morning. So now over to our invited speaker for the day, Anna Eilers. Anna is a senior associate geospatial and digital consultant in Becca's Digital Services. She is based in New Zealand. Anna has a strong background as a senior consultant, business analyst, project manager, product owner, with a focus on leading teams and leveraging technology to deliver products that enhance business processes and improve the day-to-day experience of people and provide easy access to information and insights. And I think really fitting to the theme. So we welcome you, Anna, to INCOSE Forum, and over to you.
Fabulous. Hi. Give me 2 seconds to share my screen. I'm a little bit Something's not quite right here.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Crikey. That's better. Now, hopefully, this makes sense.
We don't see. Yeah, now it's coming.
Is that
Yes.
working?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand, and I work for a company called Becker. So Becker is probably, I'll just give you a brief overview of who we are as an organisation. We're one of Asia Pacific's largest independent advisory, design and engineering consultancies. We have been around for about 100 years, and we started as a family-owned organisation and have grown to become a progressive sort of client-centric professional services consultancy. It's about 4,000 employees, 25 offices, and we deliver projects across around about 70 countries. I think it's a little bit over that now. Our vision is creative people together transforming our world, so that reflects in our culture, and our purpose is to make every day better. So lots of great things there in terms of equity and supporting this discussion. So I am a GIS professional. My background is for the last 22 years has been working utilising GIS technology. So I thought we'd have a bit of a spin on that and run through a couple of demonstrations of how GIS is applied to equity. Not just in gender, but I've taken a wider slant on that. So for those that don't know, GIS is Geographic Information Systems. It's a system and or set of tools that enables the creation, management and analysis of data by adding place to it. And more recently, we're including time, which is giving you the ability to determine where things are and when they have occurred or are occurring. Why use GIS? It helps you understand patterns and relationships that would otherwise be undiscovered in tabular data, and it improves communication and support of decision making. It's really valuable in like dragging or pulling or bringing everyone along on the journey with you, whether they are an expert in data analytics or not. Makes it really accessible. So from a GIS and equity perspective, with many technologies, we have GIS supports decision making, and the outcomes can be biased by data or those interpreting the outcomes. So the value that we have with the GIS technology is that it presents opportunities to open the interpretation of data up to those who may be impacted or affected by decisions or outcomes that are being made. And I've got two different demonstrations to talk to about how we have used that or how it's been used over time. One being the impact of sea level rise on critical infrastructure, and the other one are in a community spatial planning space. So they are quite different. So my first one is a case study on sea level rise for critical infrastructure. Can you just tell me? I'm going to drag this across. We're doing live demos, which is always a bit risky. Can you see that new screen? Do you see a map? Perfect, perfect. So on the left here, we have the water level to run our different scenarios. We have an area that could be impacted by the change of the mean high water, and we have the different critical infrastructure assets that are present in this location. So as I bring so we've got things like, sorry, I'll just run through them. So what we can see here, and probably one of the most interesting ones is this, there's the number of electricity facilities that we've got in this location around here. So if I start to drag this slider up, I can start to see the impact of the high water level as it increases over time with the sea level rise. So I can start to see the different scenarios occurring. What you can also see here is that we've got these lovely red icons appearing that indicate that there are 9 features or 9 electricity facilities that are being impacted by the water here. And we can quite clearly not only see that in the map, but also I can click on this, and every time I do this, I'm a rookie. You'd think I'd learn how to drive it. Click on the wrong thing. And you can see more information relating to those, and I can understand depending on what I enable, but I can start to see more information around each of these facilities. So there's power plants, there's some substations, and start to make decisions on how I would like to run my interventions that we may like to put in place for these facilities should the water rise to 6 feet, which is a nice little demo. The second one that I have is a spatial plan that is currently undergoing consultation with within a region here in New Zealand. So the community spatial plan is called Ahuaki, and the intent behind it is to bring the community along on the journey of creating a 30-year roadmap for this district. The district has a large Indigenous community who are strong stakeholders and have a really strong voice in how they see the land being utilised moving forward and protecting cultural values. So the intent behind this is to step all the different stakeholders through how this land could be developed moving forward to support future growth. So we've pulled together a site that talks around the why we're doing this, what the vision for the area is, and in 2020 you can say they had already started community engagement to develop the vision, and they have a strong vision around being the home of champions and building connected communities. They want to be socially resilient, they are cultural champions and environmental champions, and also economically progressive, which is always important. Taking those values, there have been some scenarios created, and those scenarios are based off things like the population growth, or largely based off the population growth. So 5 scenarios have been created. They are, one is the existing population grows around about the same progress that they've got at the moment, by about 80,000 by 2025. They have one that is back to the land, where the population grows rapidly, but not as much as they had expected. So future focus on their agriculture, where a city closer to them grows further south, and that grows to around about 95,000, or by almost 95,000. So these are small increments by 2055, and looking at the population dwindling or urban densification, so their footprint largely stays the same, but there's densification in their growth. And we run through the different scenarios that they've come up with, but instead of dragging you through each of those, I will pick one and demonstrate how these have been communicated out to the different stakeholders. So the community has the ability to really look at the information that's being presented and see why and how we as a partnership are presenting these different scenarios, and help them determine what they believe to be more suitable, or provide further feedback around things that may be missing. So taking a closer look into this one, which is the nearest city moving south and growing into their area, and we can see that their social resilience is still really important. The little townships that we have in the area, that's quite a funny scale that I've got going on there, but that's okay. The town that we're talking about, or city that we're talking about moving south, is based here. The current population, as at our last census, is represented quite nicely, and we can then demonstrate what the future growth would be. So we've graphed these so that people can start to determine or visually see the impact of that growth. As I flick through, you can start to see the impact of where they live. So we've taken drone images to be able to demonstrate the land as it currently is, but they can start to, and we've determined what the current mixture of the housing is, and what that would start to look like. So we can see the urban growth areas in the different towns within this region, and where we believe the growth, the footprints will occur, which is actually quite a nice sprawl. We've also indicated the rural residential growth. So these little green spots are the growth areas that we suspect could occur when that the rural residential land sprawl occurs. Public transport is challenging in these areas. There is a need for greater public transport, and there is a focus on that to provide accessibility to people from not only an environmental perspective, but from a social setting. Our local or cultural meeting houses are also really important and have been called out as part of this to make sure that we have access to those being presented, so we can see that that's not actually quite lined up there. So these things are being called out, as is access to the local airport. And then we also have making sure that we're championing biodiversity. So in here we can see we've got a lot of natural areas being called out. We have some lakes and some residential growth also occurring. And also really important for us is conservation, especially along predator control, but also along any of our waterways. And there is a lot of volunteer work that occurs there. Crikey. Land use and decarbonisation and climate adaptation. So we move through to then talking back around how all of the information that has been presented will apply to them and or could apply to them in this scenario. Another key thing that has been quite important for them is to be able to see the agricultural export for New Zealand is really important. So being able to demonstrate what we see or predict the future horticultural growth to be, to feed into not only our local, especially now local food security, but globally has been really important to be able to demonstrate as well. And the impact of that densification moving south. If I flick through, I believe we are pretty much at the end of that. So we're back to how these tie back to the community outcomes that they'd identified as being really important through their community or existing community engagement. And that is pretty much that. So back to my slide. So from a Becker perspective, we are doing a lot in utilising technology to demonstrate equity or ensure that equity is front of mind by presenting information out to all of the key stakeholders. Yeah, that is me.
All right, thank you, Anna. Some great work there, and I think truly embodies the the whole inclusion part to build a community. So various aspects and various layers to think through and put the solution together. So very, very interesting. Any questions for Anna?
I would have one question. It was interesting that, you now have to start a family owned now of up to 4,000 employees and how many countries and stuff you're in. I'm kind of curious as far as the gender makeup of the company in terms of, are there a lot of women that are working in these engineering or consultant positions? And so your perspectives on the company from that perspective?
Jess may also be keen to speak to this. Between the two of us, I think we could probably cover it. So I can speak to the area that I work within. The team that we have here within our GIS discipline, we have 25 staff, and of those, we're more than 50%
Well,
female.
Mhm.
We do probably overrepresentative in that space. We have done really well in securing great people. Within our software teams, it is largely more male. We have been talking about how we may support school, like working with schools to sort of get women into these kinds of roles and see if we can break down why that's not really happening. Within the spatial space, if I talk to the wider community, there are a lot of advocacy groups that occur. So there's a Woman in Spatial, there's I do a lot of work with her in the conservation space, so supporting volunteers, which provides capability to other, so people who wouldn't necessarily have access to technology to be able to support a greater conservation outcome for the country. There's young professionals are also well supported. From an engineering perspective, Jess, do you have a?
So I was prepared, and I pulled up the Becca periodically does a sort of self-census, looking at areas of diversity, the kinds of demographics that they think are important, in particular those that are underrepresented, and looking at ways to expand, recognize when there are differences, gaps between where we are and where we want to be, and so we can formulate a plan for how to close those gaps, because doing something for the sake of doing something is not necessarily productive. So the data from Becca's census from August of 2022, overall, the entire company representing about 3,500 people, 62% male, 38% female. So the part of Becca that I happen to be in is the New Zealand Defense and National Security focus. We're about 60-ish people, and I think we have fewer than 10 women. The number of women in leadership positions is not as great as it probably could be. But Becca has also been pretty upfront in establishing targets for gender representation, and in the long run, one of the things that they're aiming to do, I think by 2030, which isn't too far in the future, is they call it a 40-40-20 goal. So 40% men, 40% women, and 20% non-binary, and a mixture of non-binary men and women. So it's a pretty good, it's a good goal, and the people leaders within the business that you engage will often recognize that we're not where we think we want to be, but figuring out how to get from where we are to where we want to be, it can be quite challenging. So it's this is I would say relatively Becca is like one of the largest and oldest engineering consultancies in New Zealand, but there are many other multinationals that also have a strong presence here. I don't think that our demographics are that far away from average in that regard. But there's a lot of there's a real focus on. There's a lot of conversation about equity and how do we get from where we are to where we should be. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I know it's always, I think, well, Jess, you're familiar a little bit with aerospace too, Corp, but I'm always proud to work for a company that, even if we're not where we ought to be, that there are people that are thinking like, well, how can we get there, right? I mean, then you're really proud, because then you're kind of setting that example, and it's, and that's not necessarily true across, say, every industry and every company. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. If you're keeping metrics, you kind of know where it is, and then you also say, where do we want to go and what are our goals, then it makes you feel like really proud to be working for that company. So thank you.
So I had a question. Anna, thank you so much for your model. And you talked about one sort of purpose was to support equity in decision making, I'm assuming in the communities. And I'm just wondering, like, what kind of response have you had back from your communities or your stakeholders? And how has that supported your goal?
It's a really interesting question, because then we may have a digital tool, but how do we make sure that everyone has access to it? So we do a lot of, in this case, in this community, there is a lot of not only sending publications out, it goes out in newsletters, anyone who has access to technology and is on those forums, or it pops up as an ad, will have the ability to access it. There are people who won't just naturally engage with those things. So there's pop-ups that appear at local in the city centres on a Saturday when people are generally going to do their shopping. They'll be outside supermarkets. So there's a lot of sort of more not so much in your face, but like different ways of approaching people to make sure that those things are the information is getting out there. There is a lot of engagement with the local Indigenous groups as well, so that supports when there's meetings, local meetings, they will pull everyone in. The elders often generally will speak on behalf of the youngsters, but also pull them into those meetings as well to say, like, hey, we really need your voices, and as part of this is going to be something that you will have to live through. So there are a number of, it takes a long time is probably the way to describe it. And I think you might have seen the date was August 2022 was when we put that out to start with, and it will be August before they complete that consultation phase, 2023, before they move to the next piece. Yeah, there's a lot of effort that has to go into it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Anna? All right.
Do we have
thank you.
time? I can volunteer
Yes.
one.
Yes, sure, Serge.
There's one. It was very interesting, and to see the usage on GIS to kind of guess what is happening in the future. I thought one little difficulty there was the land usage, and how is the guesswork of knowing where the land's occupation is going to go to, and that part is probably not obvious.
And there are models that can be used. A lot of it in this case was more of a representation of where is likely to generate discussion. So this was more of a we believe it could, but presented at quite a high level. So we don't have property boundaries on there. And that things are identified as a point that are sort of that soft glow around the edge to sort of blur it out. Really it's there to demonstrate where logically would make sense, and those were based, the rural ones in particular were based on things like terrain, soil types, access, to make sure that, and then we've said, for a discussion, this is what we'll do, and we'll put those points in these locations to see how people will feel. We know the general number in the area based on the predictive model, but where they would be, this makes sense, and we've sort of started. If you don't start, people won't communicate. So there is definitely a lot of guesswork that goes into it, but there is a little bit of logic in behind those guesses.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next up, I have this audio recording from Maria. I'll just play it. It's around 4 minutes. After that, we have a small sort of an accountability session. We are all here celebrating this day, and I think it's great to take that moment to celebrate, recognize each other, recognize ourselves, but also what we are going to do next. be it very small, just within our sphere of influence, or something that we can start off within our organization, or maybe within INCOSE. We'll take that moment, since we are all, committed some time for today. So we'll take 5 minutes to, there's an action card that we have prepared. So we will take a pause, just reflect on what we could type in there. And after that, the rest of the time to the end, we will have an open cafe. So just to network, say hello to each other, learn about each other. So do stick around till the end of the session. So now I'm going to share my screen with sharing sound. I don't know what screen I'm sharing. Share it again. Okay, all right. So here's the speech from Maria, and please let me know if you can hear the audio. I'll just hit play.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. My name is Maria Romero, and I'm Associate Director of DEI for INCOSE. I am here to talk to you about the importance of DEI, but especially integrating DEI in the workplace. So, why do we care so much about DEI in the workplace? And why should we care? Is it simply the right thing to do, or are there business gains associated with diversity? It's actually both. When you try to build diverse teams, you fight discrimination in the workplace. You aim to give equal opportunities to all employees, even those, or especially those in underrepresented groups. Data shows that diversity is good for business. Diversity is good for business when the organization knows how to truly embrace, value, and make use of diversity in its leadership and workforce. Why? Because when managers and leaders know how to draw out diverse perspectives, build on them, and be inclusive of all the perspectives available on their teams, they get better ideas, question assumptions, identify blind spots, develop new approaches, and create better solutions. As a result, they see massive team innovation, performance, and growth. Along with diversity, there's diversity of thought. Diversity of thought is just as important as it refers to a range of mindsets, perspectives, and thought processes that are found within an organization's workforce. In many ways, diversity of thought is the result of a strong diversity and inclusion strategy. This is because existing diversity in areas like gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic backgrounds, disability, and mental health naturally broadens the range of perspectives within an organization. However, too many times, organizations miss this and decide to only include mindsets that are similar to theirs, causing the importance of diversity of thought to be lost, as well as the strength of different perspectives to be forgotten or to be sidelined. If you want your employees to think differently, they need to be constantly looking to improve themselves and bring the best version of themselves to work each day. If your employees are stressed, tired, or struggling with something, it will have a negative impact on how they think and detract from their work. Encouraging your employees to focus on self-care and development is therefore essential and correlates directly with seeing positive results. So before you start encouraging your people to think differently, you must ensure that appropriate health and well-being support is in place. Your employees are full of ideas. Unfortunately, many of these go untapped. So when an employee comes to you with an idea that you think might work, go with it and see what happens. By taking your employees' ideas and turning them into reality, you show that you're listening and care about them. If an idea works out, great. If it doesn't, don't be too harsh. Taking risks is unavoidable when it comes to innovation, and employees will be reluctant to come to you with their ideas if others have been lambasted when theirs haven't worked. You can't build diverse teams, though, without pairing diversity with inclusion. Nor have you won if you now have a diverse team, because equity and inclusion are where the real work begins. Employees feel included in their workplace when they have equal opportunities during the entire employee life cycle, from the way they're treated during the hiring process to how they're being managed, trained, evaluated, and promoted. But this can't happen automatically. To build an inclusive workplace, employers must provide those equal opportunities to all potential and existing employees. They should also revisit and improve their procedures as needed to ensure they're respectful to all people regardless of protected characteristics. After speaking about the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, I just want to stress the importance of this. Given the shrinking talent pool, it is critical for organizations to see the importance of this, because organizations are going to lose out on very talented employees who will be able to solve their more complex problems. And being able to solve your more complex problems will be able to create more profit and gain and growth. I am hoping this will help organizations and team leaders think twice before they start to disinclude employees from opportunities, because they will lose in the end and find limited employees willing to work with them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. When she's listening to this recording, she will be at the other two sector events, which happen later in the day today. All right, so moving on to our next segment. All right, so I hope everyone's excited to put on your thinking caps, and I can share this file in the chat. Let me first talk through it. So this is a simple action card. You can use it for yourself or take it back to your teams. It has 4 boxes. More talking in terms of the theme, what we can do. So write 2 ways you will increase your knowledge about embracing equity in this month. I think we may be involved in a lot of DEI initiatives wherever we are, but I'm sure there is more to stretch our knowledge, so we could identify a few areas that we want to increase knowledge about the topic itself. The second is on the left bottom. When we embrace equity, we embrace diversity, and we embrace inclusion. Right, one way we can embrace equity in our sphere of influence. And I do have something from INCOSE to add to that, but I'll share after we finish with this. This box is about find 2 people with whom you can share the passion and excitement that comes from valuing and supporting difference. It can be among your friends, among your colleagues, family, anyone. And the last one, bottom one is right bottom is a tribe is our biggest support system. Write one way you will like to engage with. Sorry. Okay, I think I was hearing myself back. So a tribe is our biggest support system, right? One way you would like to engage with EWLSE, or maybe within your own chapter in your region. If you don't have one, then there is sector, and we have Serge here, so who's always very supportive. So I will drop this file in the chat, but I do want to talk about, how many times when I think about understanding others and being able to embrace equity, I always get reminded of, I don't know if, I'm sure some of you have at least heard about the Atlas report from CERC. It has a helix model, which talks about how to become an effective systems engineer and what it takes as an individual and what it takes from the environment, the support from the organization which we are part of, and all of those forces together increase our proficiency. But in terms of understanding the individual itself, what makes up those forces, right? A lot of it comes from the culture we are part of. We get influenced by that, but a lot of it comes from our own personal characteristics. That is our own self-awareness, the experiences, our upbringing, what we might have got influence in that era. So for me, when I'm meeting new people, there's always there's going to be more to this person than, and when learning about that makes us embrace the differences and the uniqueness that people bring on the table. So, yeah, let me drop this, and maybe we will take 5 minutes. Maybe you can type it in your action card, or you can, think about it. Okay. Let's chat and okay. This is interesting. It doesn't allow me to drop the file. Is it because I'm sharing, or
I don't know Zoom functionality well enough to know how file sharing works.
Do you just drag it to the chat, Studi?
I did. It just has that cannot.
It says no.
It says no.
Let me see if I can do it.
Computer says no.
Let me check.
Because I know you sent it.
Okay, if not, I'll leave it up on the screen and I will email it to, so I know everyone who has joined the call today, so I can email it to everyone.
I really like the question in the bottom left about being mindful about the relationship between equity, diversity, and inclusion. A few years ago, I moved from effectively right where I had grown up to the other side of the world, and was surprised that one of the things that I thought would hold me back, which was I don't have the same background, I don't have the same cultural norms, I don't have the same sort of default settings as many of my colleagues do. And it's turned out that like my superpower in the teams that I'm in is not having that sort of default understanding. And what I bring to a conversation, sometimes it's, I don't want to say that it's, that it's a source of conflict, but it takes time. So I need my colleagues to meet me where I'm at, right? To be equitable in their engagement with me, so that the difference in my thinking, the way that I'm looking at the problem, can help them achieve better solutions, right? Not just achieve solutions better, not get to the answer more quickly, more efficiently, but get to a better answer, arrive at a place that is better because I was there, right? Because that's part of what motivates me. And so I've had over the couple of years here, I've had feedback from colleagues and managers that have said it's challenging sometimes to work with you because so much extra stuff, we have to explain so much extra. But in the act of doing so, we challenge some of our own defaults and make mindful, thoughtful choices about what we do and how we do it. And that's both in like a technical context, from like aircraft safety certification, to business execution, and who we choose to put on teams, and the kind of work that we're able to perform and deliver. So it's really been a bit of a journey for me, because I used to think diversity and inclusion is like, I don't need to worry about that, right? I'll just be judged by the goodness of my technical aptitude is all that I need. But I've got enough experience under my belt, and I've had enough sort of time in the working world to recognize that it's not just about that. And good ideas come from lots of places, and we need to take the time and put the energy in to create opportunity for input and thoughts from people who don't think like us, so that what we do is collectively better.
That's a great example, Jess, really, you know, impactful, and that you kind of experience that changing, you know, countries and jobs and being in that new culture. But I mean, it's a great example of, but it happens in every, I mean, even within the same, you know, culture within a company and new people coming in the company, right? I mean, the same situation can happen, and we have to give people that grace and time if we do want to appreciate, you know, kind of diverse or out of the box thinking or other ways. So that's a really great example. Thanks for sharing.
And I want to add just a little something that resonates very much with me. It's not enough to bring people on the table. You need to listen to them and accept the difference in order to understand where they're coming from, to create a combined better idea. Thank you.
Absolutely, Serge. I think that's a great, and thank you, Jess, also for sharing. Great. So anyone else would like to share something that they reflected on any of the boxes?
I can share something. So you know, like Studio, and like many of us actually here, we're you know quite passionate about women in engineering and women in STEM. But I think I'd like to know more about other people's perspectives, but not just from you know the women gender perspective, but also intersectionalities. And I think that it's something, just because you don't see as many people, you don't hear it as loudly. I mean, they're all equally just as important. But I think from my point of view, I'm keen to explore that more in the future, perhaps.
Well, it's interesting, just to add to that, as I had put, I want to understand other perspectives, but I actually want to understand it from the majority viewpoint, their viewpoint on DEI. I'd like to understand that better.
Thank you, Grace.
I think that's a good point, because like to make change, and like we have a lot of these kind of events, right? And I'm sure you have them in your own ends of the world and industry as well. And the people who are attending are the ones who want to make change, but you're not going to make change unless you have everyone on board. And so it's like, well, how do you get other people? You know, how do you get other people enthusiastic as well? How do we share that knowledge? And how do we actually get people to buy into the fact that it's in their benefit and their organization's benefit, and it's not just a box ticking exercise? Because I think sometimes it does sort of end up being like that.
Oh, Grace, the answer. I have the answer. The answer is allyship. The answer is allyship. And that is there when an organization or group or whatever has enough members of a majority demographic who recognize not just that there is a gap, but are ready to do something about it and are equipped with thoughtful, informed actions that they can take, both on a micro level and macro level, to inform policy, to inform decision making, to hold each other to account. Then you've got the recipe for like the paradigm shift to actually occur. It will still take time. It will still, you know, old ways of thinking take time to adjust. But nevertheless, active and proactive participation from allies in a majority demographic is totally important, and it can be quite confronting for members of the majority group to recognize that, you know, that there's, you know, that this exists, but compassionate and thoughtful engagement on a peer-to-peer level makes it possible to affect change that is driven from the top. The bottom has to do it, be ready to do it. The top has to say it's a priority, and allyship is the answer. Well, allyship is the answer that I am excited to get some traction in my sphere of influence so that we can be better. Right? That's our company motto, right? Is make every day better. So let's use this as a tool for making the everyday that much better.
Yep.
So playing off of that, when I have the opportunity, I talk about allyship in my classes, and I talk about it from the point of view of identifying somebody who's being harmed in some way or being a target, call attention to what's happening, make it clear that it needs to stop, and in some cases you join that person who's being harmed. And I ask my students to come up with examples of this. And I had one student come up with this example that I'll just never forget. He was like, every week they would have a pizza lunch, working lunch. And the person in charge of ordering the pizza would always order meat pizza. And there was a vegetarian in the group. And one week, a new person joined the group and saw what was happening. And he ordered vegetarian pizza for this person, put the bill in front of the person in charge, said that he needed to pay him the money and, stop doing this from now on. And, so it just, sort of had all the elements of what I was talking about, but it was sort of I'm going to call it a harmless example, right? Nobody is going to perhaps feel vulnerable or attacked, in this example, which is what I'm finding, to be the hardest thing. And then there's one other example that I like to call out, and that is there was a reporter who it was a really hot day in Washington, D.C., 95 degrees. Maybe that isn't hot for some, I don't know. And this woman was wearing a sleeveless dress. This woman was wearing a sleeveless dress because it was just so hot. And she was also asking some very difficult questions. She was a news reporter, and she got kicked out. And it's sort of a cute little thing. She got kicked out. And the next day, all of the women, Republicans and Democrats, this is the United States, showed up with sleeveless dresses. And they said they had the right to bear arms, BAREARMS. So that's another example.
Yeah, actually, I would agree to how it benefits to have the allyship, because we see it very clearly in our company, and that's something. So I work in Boeing, and I'm in India, but yeah, we do have it's a huge company, and there are a lot of people, and it's a global company. There are people from all over the world, and to really make use of the talent that we have across the world, we do need to have this understanding of what each person brings to the table, what their differences are, and how to be more inclusive, how to embrace diversity and all of that. So we have a lot of these ally groups. So every group kind of has their own allyship, and there are people part of it and talking about it. It's like an everyday conversation. So I mean, now we have Women's Day, so people are talking about, we are having discussions, we are having open discussions with the team, with everybody, and we're talking about these things. So it's where I see it affects is like, right now I'm part of this leadership program, which is from Boeing. And again, this program is a global program. It's not specific to a particular region. So we are meeting so many people from different parts of the world, and we are discussing about each other's personal stories, and about getting to know about each other. So that really helps us understand that there are differences. We all have differences, and how to really accept that, and how to make the most of it, basically. Yeah, so I've seen that it really helps.
Thanks, Aparna. So the session is open for discussion either on the action cards or in general. Maybe I'll stop sharing if that's okay, and we can continue to chat. We have about 10 minutes to the end of the session. So
can I volunteer a small story? Whenever I work with international groups, there are massive differences in the way people behave in a group. So you have to hunt the people who do not speak in order to give them some space to speak up. And to be able to do that, you need to create some safe space. You need to rely on some past trust, because if you invite somebody to speak and that person doesn't know you or doesn't trust you, he will not speak up. So you have all those elements of this safety net. So you will not volunteer a new idea or something very different if you don't know how well you are going to be received. So the atmosphere of trust starts from the ally inviting, if you want, but it's also around the group of people there have a trust atmosphere, so that the person there is bringing something new to the table.
That element of trust that you spoke about, Serge, is really, really important. If you're in an environment where you don't have confidence that you can speak compassionately and with good intent and express yourself, then it's much harder to have that. It's frankly just, it's too hard to be able to affect the kind of change that you might want to see by having that kind of open environment. So as leaders, we have to be willing and able to have uncomfortable conversations with our own leaders and with our peers, to if we see that we're not that sort of safe environment, that environment of trust isn't being fostered, we have to be willing and able to stand up and say, not enough, it's not enough, we can be better. And that's not always comfortable, and it's certainly not easy. But the worst end of the spectrum, you might take a risk like that and have it not pay off, or have there be negative consequences for yourself or for others. That instead of affecting a positive change, it affects a negative change in one way or another. And that's still, just because there's a potential for a negative outcome doesn't mean that the risk isn't worth taking. And so as a community of systems engineers and leaders, and the overlap between those is often pretty cool to see. We have the ability, we can and should take those kinds of risks responsibly, and share the stories of when such a risk was taken and what happened, and so that others can hear and learn. And sometimes just telling somebody about a time that you did something uncomfortable and hard gives them the courage to then go on and do something uncomfortable and hard.
Echo that. Yeah.
And I want to add something. Sorry, I don't want to monopolize. This is an example that I want to do. There's one person in this audience that I didn't hear today. Midori, is there anything you'd like to share with us from the Far East?
Okay. Thank you, Serge. Okay. I work for a small Japanese company, so there are 25 engineers and 2 female engineers. So it's difficult for me to get allied with other engineers. So after I joined INCOSE, I learned to working with many systems engineers from different companies, and now I'm in TLI, and it's great to learn about technical leadership. So I think it's I can improve my leadership skills, and I other many human soft skills in INCOSE. Thank you.
Great. Anybody knows the other two ladies who we didn't hear about? Stuti?
Arulmani, Savigya, would you like to add anything?
Hi, Savigya here. I'm from India. And I think this session has brought upon a lot of points for me to reflect upon. And as a lot of people discussed, say, in a person in a leadership position, how can they influence these changes? It was something that really opened up like ideas in my mind. But again, I was wondering at a lower level, at a person being part of so peers like such as me, just a new beginner, I was being part of all these activities, these daily sessions. How can I bring on that change such that, as we discussed, allyship and say compassionate conversations, encouragement, that can be say rippled upon in the community itself.
So I think Savigya is asking from the perspective as she's a fresh graduate engineer, how can she be part of this change, how she can influence this change? So
yeah,
it's a really tough question. I think one thing that that we've been trying to do is teach people about negotiating and influencing. And so maybe I could recommend women tend to not negotiate, and you know, and may have challenges influencing others. So I think I might recommend getting training in that area, negotiating, influencing, and that can help you you know, take that first step that you're asking about. You know, how can you make an impact and change things? I think that's what you're asking about.
I'm gonna pile on there, Alice. The understanding how to express your needs and wants in a way that another party is going to be receptive to, which is really about what negotiation and influencing are key to. You've also got to believe that your needs and wants are valid, right? You've got to be ready to say, this is something that I need and want.
right.
And then you know, look for others who share those, who might have similar needs and wants. Because one of the slides, one of the quadrants on the slide that we had a minute ago was about, you know, our tribe, and that's important. Recognizing that, you know, you're not alone. There's going to be somebody else out there in your sphere of influence who's having similar thoughts, and engaging with each other and supporting each other is also important in both making sure that, you know, feeling valid, feeling that your wants and needs are valid, but also in showing to others, to peers and to leaders above you, that it's not just one person saying, this is what we need, this is what I need, this is what I need, we need to move in a different direction because I said so. Then, you know, a lone voice becomes a chorus, and a chorus empowered with skills in negotiation and influence can affect a change over a long enough time period that it sticks. And that's not to say that it's easy, but it takes courage and confidence and the support of others like this.
And it starts with by accepting that you are worthy of these wants and needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think early in the career, what I would have is be like just right, acknowledging those needs and wants, and having that that tribe to tell you, that support system to tell you that, you know, Alice, what you just said, that yes, I am worthy of those needs and wants, and not to discount or belittle our, you know, whatever madness or craziness about our passion, right? Like just keeping that passion alive and being able to have that support around, just by voicing it out and saying that this is what I'm passionate about. And I think that's most important early in the career. Great conversation. We have hit the end of the time. If anyone would like to say anything last minute, or I would also like to take the Zoom picture as well. So if everyone can come on the camera for a few seconds.
Good on you for remembering to do it, Stuti. I often forget.
Thank you, everyone. That's a great picture. Thank you for this is the kickoff of the 3 events that we have running today. And thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Small group, but I think great conversations and great learnings from each other. And I'm totally inspired and energized for the day today. So I hope the same for everyone.
Me too. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Stuti.
Halmani, do you want to say one last thing?
That was for you, Arulmani. Do you want to say something?
I'm like this kind of meeting. It's like now only I'm joining. I'm getting more excited to see and then hearing information from everyone. I'm just observing everything. Yes, thank you all to share your information.
All right. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice to see everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.